I had a patient that I had seen for about 5 years, and she had never let me touch her. She had both ADHD and autism. And
Uh-huh.
so I just told the parents, hey, this just happened to my kid. Why don't we try your child off gluten and dairy and see what happens? I
I
didn't
see.
have any training then. I was just like, let me see if it worked for
Yeah.
my kid. And I saw such a reversal. Let me see if that will work. So 6 months that we tried that with this patient. So she went from nonverbal, very aggressive, absolutely constipated, on the verge of being kicked out of school to she said her first word and now she was sleeping and she let me touch her for the first time after 6 months just because we made changes in what she was eating.
Welcome back to Mother's Guide Through Autism. I'm so excited. So I'm very honored to have Dr. Eko here with us today. So you're going to get a lot of great information. So welcome to Mother's Guide, Dr. Eko.
Yeah, such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm pretty sure our listeners would like to know more about you. So can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, so my name is Hokehe Eko. I'm a board certified integrative pediatrician. And what does that word mean? Simply means integrative medicine is a combination of evidence-based complementary medicine and conventional medicine. So I look at the whole person and not just the symptoms that the child is presenting with. So I'm a board certified pediatrician and I run Glow Pediatrics. And Glow Pediatrics is a virtual practice and we do several things. We do autism and ADHD evaluations in 12 states. And we also provide holistic care to children, specifically with ADHD and autism. So again, looking at the whole child, addressing all the underlying symptoms they have, like sleep and constipation or loose stools and difficulty focusing and aggressive behavior and picky eating. So all the major areas affect our children, we address it. And in addition, we provide resource management for parents who have just received an evaluation and advocates, like we help them if they have an IEP meeting. So we provide advocates to go into the meetings with them so that way their child can get the best support they need at school. So our goal really is to just provide all-round care to children with ADHD and autism because we find that often care is so fragmented and parents often don't know how best to support their children. So that's what we do. I'm also a mommy of 3 lovelies who keep me on my toes all the time and just so thankful to be able to serve. I also run a nonprofit for foster children called Kids of Hope. And what else do I do? I have a podcast called Brain Power with Dr. Eko. I'm an author and a speaker. And yeah, I think that about sums it up.
That is a lot. So, my goodness, I am sure just with the 3 children and your business, I just don't know how you're doing it all, but wow. And thank you for everything that you do because once you get a diagnosis, it's so overwhelming and it's so difficult to know what to do first and where to find your resources. So, I know everyone listening is going, yes, thank you. I need that information right now. So you had mentioned that you were a board certified pediatrician with a focus on treating ADHD and autism. What brought you to those two focuses?
Interesting. I know that's a good question. Yes. Let's see. So I was a general pediatrician for 12 years. And at some point, I was getting harassed at work. And so I was like, okay, that's it. I think I'm done with this. And so I decided to leave my job. But then I was like, so what am I going to do with myself? And this thought, I call it a God moment because it's not like I didn't know that there wasn't an issue in Oklahoma where I live. There's a 2-year wait list for getting an autism evaluation and just understanding what that means from a pediatric standpoint, because the first 5 years of life is so critical, right? That's when brain growth is the highest. So if we're going to make changes in a child's life, you want to start within the first 5 years. So if children are waiting 2.5 years to get a diagnosis, then we're already outside of the best part of their lives when we could make changes. And it doesn't mean you can't afterwards, but it's just best when you do it then, because their brains are growing and they're malleable still, and you can make those changes faster than if they're older. So that was brought to my attention, like the fore of my attention, and I decided, I'm going to do something about it. So I went and I shadowed a developmental pediatrician, like those that they're trained to do the evaluations. And I shadowed him, and then that's how I started the practice. So I did that and I started doing the evaluations. But then at the same time, my daughter was about 9 years old, right? And all of a sudden, her lips started turning black, like jet black, like black on my hair. And also, in addition to her lips turning black, like her skin was broken out, her behavior changed, she wasn't doing well in school. So it's like, what in the world is going on with my kid? And I went to see the allergist. They were like, oh, there's nothing. Everything was negative. And that's when I got upset, because I was like, okay, we're both physicians here. You allergists and me, you can see this kid looks like they have something going on, like allergies, but you're telling me all your tests are negative. So what in the world is going on with my kid? And I couldn't get answers, right? So then I was desperate, and I started just searching everywhere. And I looked online and I came across this thing called functional medicine, integrative medicine. I was like, what? I never heard about that my whole life. So I did some digging, started just asking those pediatricians if I could talk to them. And then they told me to do this test. So it's a food sensitivity test I did, and it was a home test. I did it, and it showed my daughter was highly sensitive to gluten, eggs, dairy, cashew, pineapple. I said, what? So I'm that mother, and I completely cleared my fridge, and I told everybody in the house, well, hello, we're all egg-free, dairy-free, gluten-free as of right now. So I did that for the whole family. But the amazing thing is that in 6 weeks, her lips turned back to pink, her skin cleared up, the behavior started reversing, and I was like, okay, what just happened? So obviously I can't unsee what I just saw. So I started looking for training as a pediatrician. So I went and got retrained as an integrative doctor. And so when I first started Glow Pediatrics, I was just doing evaluations. And then it hit me one day like, no, but you know how to help these kids pass the eval, right? And you see, they're struggling with the same things your child was. And yes, my child didn't have a diagnosis of autism, but my goodness, it's the same skin issues, not sleeping well, changes in behavior, all of that. So that's when I started applying what I had learned to helping the children after the diagnosis. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Yeah, so taking your own life experiences, and applying it to everyone. And that is wonderful because I've been on this journey a while. My son is 32.
Wow.
And yes, a lot has changed, but then a lot hasn't in all this time. So I love stories like yours. Not only are you a mom, but you're applying your gifts to helping others.
Mhm.
And I'm curious what brought you to autism in particular or in ADHD. What was it about those two areas?
So that's what I was explaining, was that it's not like I didn't know there was an issue, right, with the
Uh-huh.
diagnosis. That's where it started.
Yeah.
Hey, there is a problem with this is too long and there's not enough people to diagnose the kids.
Yes.
Why don't you do something about it? So
Yeah.
that's where it
Yeah.
first started. So I did that. And
Uh-huh.
then and then my daughter's thing came up. But then I also, with my daughter, I had a patient that I had seen for about 5 years, and she had never let me touch her. She had both ADHD and autism. And
Uh-huh.
so I just told the parents, hey, this just happened to my kid. Why don't we try your child off gluten and dairy and see what happens? I
I
didn't
see.
have any training then. I was just like, let me see if it worked for
Yeah.
my kid. And I saw such a reversal. Let me see if that will work. So the first 6 weeks, 6 months that we tried that with this patient, so she went from nonverbal, very aggressive, absolutely constipated, on the verge of being kicked out of school, to she said her first word, and now she was sleeping, and she let me touch her for the first time after 6 months. just because we made changes in what she was eating. And so that really solidified that I had to get this
Yeah.
training, because
Yeah.
now I like all these kids. Like usually we are, the way we are trained in medical school is, okay, here's some Miralax for your constipation. We don't know what to do with your sleep. Okay, here's some Risperidol for your aggressive behavior and nothing else. And
Right.
so just with all the experiences I kept having, it just
Just
organically moved me in that direction.
true.
And here I am. So
So
yeah,
that just unfolded and kept unfolding.
right,
And I love that you look at the whole person
right.
rather than just the symptoms. And so just looking at the symptoms and address the physical environment, and then you also look at the environmental factors to treat the kids. What physical and environmental factors do you address specifically for kids with autism? I know the diet is like huge, right? We all know that, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, so something as simple as addressing what the sleep environment is like. Because if you, for example, if your child is asleep, but there's devices in your child's rooms, devices have been shown, so like the iPad, the phone, has been shown to emit rays that decrease melatonin production in the brain. And then here we are giving the child melatonin to sleep, but it's because we have devices there. So how about we take out devices or unplug the Wi-Fi? And then we also address their sleep. If your child is grinding their teeth, snoring, that's an indication they're not getting enough oxygen in. And it's going to impact the sleep, which will impact the behavior, which will impact what they do, that like their behavior the next day, right? So
Mhm.
it's all connected. It's finding all those connection points and addressing them. So a lot of kids that are restless sleepers also struggle. They also may be, they also may have low iron, right? Because there's something called restless leg syndrome, which is usually caused by low iron. So if your pediatrician is not evaluating all of that and they just say, well, work on the sleep routine, which is what I used to do too. But if say the child is found to have low iron and we address it, then the sleep gets better, then the behavior gets better, then you see it all starts to get better. But it starts with, okay, making the changes with the Wi-Fi, okay, addressing how their airway is as they sleep, addressing if they have enough iron on board or not. So
Mhm.
that's one example. Another thing is addressing lead in the natural environment. We have lead can cause changes in the way the brain functions, and that's not something we check after the age of 2. But if your house, for whatever reason, has lead in it, it's going to affect your child's behavior. And if we don't address it in the physical environment, that's not going to help. So I'll give you a story. I had a 12-year-old who came to see me, and mom said she's hyperactive. They said the teacher said she has ADHD. She needs medication. I always get the diagnosis before I even have a chance to open my mouth a lot of times. So I said, okay, so tell me about your house. Because I asked that question, she said, well, everybody thinks I'm crazy. When me and my daughter go into our house, we feel sick. When the dog goes into the house, the dog lays down and just wants to pass out. When insects fly in our house, they die. And I said, okay, so can you please take my patient out of that house? And she said, well, yeah, she could take her daughter, but not her. She would have to keep staying there. So her daughter was out of the house for 6 weeks and no longer had hyperactivity. So if I did not ask that question, I would have put this kid on a stimulant and this child would have gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, because it turns out there was black mold, like a really bad case of black mold in the house. So that's how environmental factors can make changes in the way children behave. And if you're not asking those questions, you are going to give them a medication they don't need and it won't help them. And they will certainly get worse. So those are examples of physical things that you look for.
Yes, and I wish every doctor would take into consideration what is the why to the behavior. So, how can parents use this information to get better care for their kids on the spectrum from their own pediatricians?
Well, that's a good one. So, I mean, it depends on the pediatrician if they're going to be open to listening to any of this. I mean, I hope.
Yeah.
They can share. I have a TEDx on exactly this. We must change the way we treat children's ADHD. They can share that with their pediatrician because, or just ask the pediatrician, can you please evaluate for lead? Can you check if my child is not sleeping well? Can you please refer us to get his airway checked? If my child is really restless, can you please check for iron and just see if that's what's causing it? So just starting to have those conversations with our pediatricians and hopefully will help. But that's what I would say, because unfortunately, sometimes it's hard for our docs to hear it because that's not how we are trained. You almost will have to get retrained or at least change your mindset about it or have some experience for you to say, maybe I should look at this from a different way. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. A great way to approach it. And I'm like this, again, I've been around a while and I just think that if you're not getting the help, I always tell the moms, listen to your intuition. And no, you're not crazy. If you really have a strong pull towards something, more than likely there's a reason for it.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely correct. 2 million%, because mommies know their kids better than any doctor ever will, right? Because we only spend how much time with them. So if you're not getting answers, then just keep asking and find somebody who will listen. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Would you talk about the four pillars of health?
Okay, so the 4 pillars of health I like to talk about: brain health, gut health, environmental, and emotional health. And the reason they are the 4 pillars is because they are all connected to each other. So I love to talk about the brain because the brain runs us. It's the organ that controls everything we do. And often we don't think about it, but the things that we put into our mouths, which go into our gut, right, directly affect the brain because there's so much research that shows the gut and the brain are directly connected. So if we start thinking of our brains in the sense of, I need to fall in love with the health of my actual brain itself, then we will change the things that we do. So for example, you know that the brain needs the most oxygen in the body, right? Even more than any other organ. So what if we started thinking about it as, okay, I'm going to take 10 steps today because I know my brain needs the oxygen for it to run well. So how does my brain get the oxygen? When you move, then oxygen is moved, like oxygen flows is better. And so that way, because oxygen flows better, then it flows to the brain the most. And so therefore, your brain works better. If you eat something like, say, you're drinking sodas with all that sugar in it, that sugar literally sets your brain on fire. It inflames your brain. So if you, before you drink, you say, is this gonna be good for my brain or not? Then you most likely, or hopefully, if you think about it that way, you put it down and make a better choice, right? So that's why I like to talk about brain health and gut health because they are so linked. And whatever inflames the gut, which foods can, like in the case of my daughter, that's clearly what was happening. Her tummy was being inflamed with all those foods she was highly sensitive to, and I had no idea, right? And so when the gut is inflamed, the brain is right there. It's inflamed, and what shows up is not sleeping, aggressive behavior, picky eating, everything is connected to. They're both connected. So environmental health, with the examples I've just given you, it's important for you to look at not just the physical environment. I mean, the emotional environment is a whole nother environment, but the things in our environment, all the pesticides, all of those things are making actual changes in the way our brains function. And so that's a huge area that's so important to address. And then with emotional health, of course, that ties back to brain function again, but still all the talk about trauma and epigenetics and how trauma literally changes the way the brain functions. And so emotional health is so important to get a handle on because that affects every part of your body, right? When you're stressed, you almost can't function well. So it's important when we are talking about kids and even our parents, because I understand that if the child isn't, it's not just about the children, right? If the parents aren't doing well, the children won't do well. So my focus always is, hey, parents, this is what you can do better, because by extension, the children will do better. And so if we're addressing the emotional health as well, then across the board, we're going to do well.
Yeah, all four of those are so important. And I do think it feels like it's about taking a puzzle. And that's why I guess the puzzle pieces are so popular when we refer to autism, but it really is. I mean, it really is dissecting something and looking at it closely and then problem solving that. And I know that when you're in the thick of it, as a parent, it's just like, I need some relief right now. Right? So just know, I try to reassure. So anyone listening to this is just take one step at a time and just keep being kind to yourself. I'm very interested when I said kind to yourself in the word love. I love how children spell love, which is your book.
Yeah.
What is the book about and who is it for?
So I wrote that book because, like I said, I'm a mommy of three, and I did realize that each of them received love, gave love in a different way. And I've often heard, okay, how do children receive love is time. And I was like, it has to be more than time. So that's why I started playing around with different things. So then I came up with this using the alphabet, like each letter of the alphabet, to create a different way a child spells or receives love. So, for example, A is like attention, Y is like yummy treat. So that stands that. So the story I told around that is cooking with your kids and how it's such a bonding experience for you and your child. And then, so the book is kind of, it's a book, but it's also reflection. So I have pages in there where after you've read the short chapter, you can reflect on how you're going to make those changes for your children in your children's lives. So like, for example, D is for dancing. So I encourage them to dance, like just have an impromptu dance party with your child. So you'll be amazed. That's what children remember more than the things that they get. Yeah. So that's why I wrote it. And I wrote it for all parents, really, because all of us can definitely learn the different ways. And it's like very reflective, because then if you find ways that your children enjoy the expression of love with you, then if you do that more, then that builds up the love bank for both you and your child, right? And often you'll find that the behaviors or the things that you may not like, you start to see an improvement because you're addressing their love needs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that concept too. You know, the reflection piece really gives you an opportunity to build and grow. Yeah, I love that. I love the name of it, How Children Spell Love.
I'll
Beautiful.
have to send you a copy. Thank you.
Oh, wow, yay. I would love that. So let's share, if you would, some tips and strategies. I know you just shared a bit. The reflection piece definitely would be a strategy, but how to create a secure and loving environment. I know it grows, but how do you get to the heart of that?
So I think it's important for parents, first of all, to be aware of themselves, like, and what's going on within yourself as a parent. Because if you are struggling with stressors or unmet needs yourself, it's kind
Mhm.
of hard to give that to anybody else. So I have learned the hard way often is
Mhm.
that I need to fill up my cup as well. And it's not from a selfish place. And I know everybody talks about self-care and all of that and all of that. But my take on all of that is simpler is better. It's basically what it is that you enjoy doing. It's not some prescribed thing that, or what you hear everybody saying, go get a massage and all that stuff. It's really, even if it's 5 minutes in the bathroom that you can escape by yourself, and I found that journaling helps. Like, you just get it out of you and just write it out, and take some deep breaths and just be kind to yourself. You said that before, but it is the truth. Because if we as parents, we don't love ourselves, we're not kind to ourselves, we can't really help our kids. So that's the first place, is deal with ourselves, right? And then for our kids, it's being specific, right? It often helps kids not just to say great job. It helps to say, I saw the way you were so nice to your sister. I really like that. And you find that it's amazing how kids will gravitate to the specific thing you said, and they'll be more likely to repeat it. So if you want your child to keep repeating those behaviors, you want to be specific. Sorry, I have my partners, as I call them, who keep opening the door.
That's perfectly fine. We're all moms here.
Yeah, so
Everyone listening understands.
yes, and so what was I saying? Yeah, so kids respond to when you're specific as a parent and you point out the good that they're doing. And it's past praise, it's being specific. I like that you did this. I like that you did that when you catch them doing something good. And I think that definitely greatly helps increase that bond. And putting down your phones. I've given my kids permission that when I'm talking to them, if I'm not looking at them, they can tell me, Mom, please, can you look at me? My son did that to me today because he was talking to me and I was looking somewhere else and he's like, Mom, can you please look at me? And so it does help because we're teaching them too, right? Because kids will do what we say, sorry, what we do more than what we say. So I'm teaching him to show respect to others by eye contact and just full attention. And so those things, the modeling of those behaviors and being willing for your children to be able to say that to you in a respectful way and not get upset because they are correcting you. And if we don't look at it as correction, right, is that we're all in this journey together and we're trying to model to them the best behavior that we want to see from them. So that helps. Definitely draw each other together and playing together as a family. I think play has been lost and we need to bring it back because we as adults we need to play. We're just
Yes.
stuck on our phones and like scrolling, and I'm like, the scrolling has done nothing for any of us. So can we please put down the phones and just play with the kids, hop up and down, and just let all that, the pent up stress of life and all of that, let it out and just take a walk with the kids, play with them. Let's bring play back, sing with them, dance. All of those things help. Yeah, increase the bond as a family for sure.
Yeah, and I think it helps adults remember how to play too. I like that you said that because I think it doesn't matter what age you are, we all need to use our imaginations. And so when you play with your kids, you're kind of opening up your own imagination too. I love that.
Yes, yes. It's no imagination police. So we're
Yeah.
all, it's free. And the more we imagine things, the more they tend to happen. So let's get to imagining. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. No imagination police.
I got that from my mentor, Dr. Una. Yes, she loves
Yeah.
that.
I love that. I'm going to use that. No imagination police. So, what advice? I know there's so much advice, you're a wealth of knowledge and experience, but if you could just just in a nutshell, what's your best advice for parents raising a child on the spectrum?
Okay, so first advice is to know that you're the best parent for your child because I think that parents often struggle with that and the guilt of maybe it's my fault. And I always tell parents when I first am talking to them about the diagnosis, okay, I can write a prescription saying no mommy guilt here because you didn't do anything, right? And it's not your fault. And that it's important to recognize that your child is still your precious child and there is hope. The diagnosis is simply a diagnosis really to give support to your child. It's not the end of the world at all. There
Mhm.
is hope. Children do get better. Children can improve. At least the trajectory of their life can improve. And I always tell parents, become a detective of your child. What is that thing that your child can do really well? Because if you're not looking, you won't find it. So, for example, the amazing kids that I see that can listen to a song one time and can play the song, that's a gift. But if you're not looking and you don't recognize it, then you're not going to boost that gift, right? Or the
Right.
child who can see something and draw it immediately, or the child who can hear a foreign language and can sing the song in it without knowing the foreign language. Those are gifts, right? And it's so important for us to recognize the gifts in our children so we can boost it and not comparing our children to one who we thought they would come out to be, which every parent, when you're pregnant, you have these dreams about your child, and then your child is here and they don't quite match up to the dreams. And it's just coming to terms with that. Get therapy, talk about it. there's no shame in asking for help, right? Because we need you to be whole parent so that you can love this child. And your child will, the goal is for your child to be the best version of themselves. That's it. Not the version you want or I want or anybody wants. It's the best version of your child. And so it's just recognizing that and letting go of any guilt you may hold, and just knowing that you're here and your goal is to support your child and boost the things that they're great at, and the other things, Glow Pediatrics is here to walk alongside you. Basically. And yeah, honestly, because it can be overwhelming, and just know that you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. You're not alone. Don't hide in shame. There is no shame. Unfortunately, yes, I know there are cultures. Like, I talked to parents and they told me, so what am I supposed to do? I'm going to be ostracized by my whole family because in our culture, diagnosed as a child with autism, like, it's not acceptable. And so it's just, and I told those parents, first of all, you have to accept your child, because yes, it is your child. We're not going to worry about the rest of the family right now. You parents, can you please love and know that the fact that I just told your child has autism does not change anything about your child. Your child is still your child. We're going to walk alongside you to help you support your child, but you have to accept your child first. I know it's a journey, it's a process, and I'm one of our pediatricians at Glow Pediatrics. Both of them are autism moms, and so one of them does like workshops on grief and walking through the grieving process that parents go through, and the other one works with relationships and marriages, and just teaching parents like, okay, how can we strengthen your bond so that this child can get the best love and care that they can from both of you. And so just knowing, I guess this is a long answer. It's just,
It's a great answer. Keep going.
love yourself, accept your child, and be open to just finding all the ways, because there are ways that your child can definitely feel better, do better. Yes, that's what I would say.
Yeah, every part of that is so important to hear. So thank you for that. And I know that sometimes we just have to hear things more than once and really absorb that. So you just spoke truth, and I hope somebody listening really took that in and it helps them, because we all need that support. So
Yes.
thanks. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention, maybe that I didn't have an opportunity to ask you, that you wanted to mention before you go?
No, I think we pretty much have touched on everything that, oh, maybe if you have been waiting for an evaluation, like at Glow Pediatrics, we don't have wait lists, and we can do the evals virtually. So we're in 12 states, and I'm sure we'll give you all that information.
Yeah.
But we're here to help, and not just for the evals, but after that. So we have our virtual Glow circles where parents can come in, ask questions, learn from other parents, and it's me in there and with other pediatricians, and we have a holistic nutritionist just teaching parents practical ways to get their children, like addressing the sleep, the picky eating, the constipation, the aggressive behavior, the focus, all of those things, because they're all connected. And just how do we address that without medication? I mean, I'm not against medication, but there's ways to address it without medication. And so that's our children, when they go to therapy, can get the best from therapy because they feel good on the inside. And that's really our goal. Is we say we want our children to glow with health from the inside out, because once they do that, all the therapies then will work better. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good to know that you can do that virtually. That's wonderful. So now that you said all that, everyone is going to want to call you. So where can we find you?
Yes, so our website is www.glowpediatrics.com. So one word, GLOW is glow, pediatrics.com. And then our phone number you can call is 405-871-5807. And we'll be happy to help you. So you can sign up on the website, you can request a meet and greet on the website, or you can just call the office, either one.
And what ages do you go up to?
Okay, so currently it's ages 18 months all the way up to 17 that we do the evaluations for. But we often tell parents, if your child has been diagnosed already, or you even suspect it, like you can join the glow circles and we can start teaching you what to do with your child even before you get the diagnosis. So
Perfect.
even
Yeah.
if your child is older than that and still is having all of those issues I spoke about, like the sleep and all of that, we're
Mm.
happy for you to join Glow Circles and we'll serve you. Yeah, it works for adults, it works for children. So yeah,
Okay, great to know. Great to know. Oh my goodness. Well, this was great, as I knew that it would be. And so you're always welcome to come back and have another chat with us and teach us more.
okay, I'd love to. Thank you.
Yes. And so thank you for being a guest on Mother's Guide Through Autism.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of Mother's Guide Through Autism, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.